You're listening to Online Pet Health Podcasts with Dr. Megan Kelly. Continuing education for veterinarian rehabilitation therapists. Learn more at onlinepethealth.com.
Hey, Sasha, thank you so much for joining me.
Hi, Megan. Good morning.
Sasha, today we're going to be chatting about compliance in our owners. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience with this and a little bit about your journey in vet rehabilitation?
I started my rehab career as a human PT and was getting very burned out and then transitioned over to the canine world. And when I transitioned to the canine world, my vision and my mission was to have the quality of canine rehab be the same quality that we had in human rehab. Part of that was client education and client compliance, because just like it is in the canine world, in the human world, your outcomes are very dependent on your clients completing their home exercises, following activity restrictions, etc. So when I moved to the canine world, the tools that I used in the human world didn't exist. So for example, we had these huge online home exercise and training programs in the human world, and I could go in and customize a program, or I could use a program that a surgeon wanted me to use, and then I could email that to my human clients. They could watch videos and read explanations and see pictures, and then they could also monitor their progress at home. So when I started my canine rehab business, this was one of my goals, that I wanted to have this home education tool for the animals. So a couple years ago, I found a company and the technology was there and ready to go. And so I built an online home exercise program called Canine Home Exercises. And it's just getting started. We have 400 exercises in it, 85 templates, and we'll do a video shoot every year. So right now on our list to add for this year is cats. I'm allergic to cats, but you know, other people rehab cats. And then there are about 150 other exercises that we need to add. So we're always getting subscriber feedback so that we can add more stuff to the platform so that it works as a compliance tool in the rehab clinic.
So, when I think about compliance, there are four things mainly I think about that we got to get our clients to do. So the first one is generally to make some environmental changes, whether that's to the house or how they're getting the dog in and out of the car. Often we need to get them to change the food or deal with any weight, medications, and then exercises. And the first three are usually the easier ones because it's usually a one change and they have to do something and then it's done. So whether they change the medication or they add a supplement in, or they maybe have to buy some rugs for the house, and they change the food, but they're feeding anyway. But the exercises, that's day to day, and it takes up time and it's a big effort. So that's one of the things really in my practice, really where I found we would have clients. I'd have clients that were really good in the beginning, so they would do the exercises and then they would start to whittle away, and you could see it because the dog would come in and they would be doing so well. And so compliance is so important for us because it determines our outcome. So if the client is doing the exercises, we get better outcomes. If they're not, then it affects us. And sometimes we don't know because often they'll say to us, yes, I'm doing the exercises. We don't know. So, so it's a great tool that you're giving us to be able to give to clients to make sure that they are as compliant as possible. So when we see a client, how do we know when they're going to be a compliant client or if they're not going to be? How do we determine that?
That's such a good question. For me, I think about number one is engaging the client in the rehab process. And for me, the best way for me to do that is to really hone in on what the client's goals are for their pet. I will often have my rehab goals, and my rehab goals may be way loftier than what the client's goals are. So let's say a small dog with a medial patellar luxation surgery, and the owner's goals for that dog are to jump on the couch again. So this dog needs to be activity restricted for 6 to 8 weeks. It needs to go through rehab to strengthen the muscles. So the way we start that conversation is at our discharge appointment. So for us, we do post-op rehab immediately after surgery, and then the patient's discharge the following morning if everything's going well. In that morning discharge appointment, we probably spend 30 minutes to an hour with the client. And it's all about, what are your goals for your dog? And this is the physiology of the tissues. And this is why we need to have your dog activity restricted. And then when we send them home with things, we prioritize our top 3. So there are probably 12 things that I can send home with a client, but really there are 3 things that they could really do that would optimize the function of their dog and still be safe. So I really step back and ask myself, what are those top 3 things? And in a post-operative MPL dog, it might be limb elevation, retrograde massage or effleurage, and standing isometric exercises. Front paws on a balance disc, for example, so they're pumping the fluid out of the muscles. And if I stick with those 3 things and don't go crazy and ask the client to do all 8, I think that significantly improves compliance. And then understanding why the clients don't want to do the exercises. So in a post-operative case, it's usually because they just spent a few thousand US getting their dog surgery. They are scared to death that they're going to ruin it. So we sit down with them with the dog on the floor and actually do the things so that they can see what it looks like. And then I always have this reason to leave the room. I'll say, I need to go check on a patient in critical care. I'll be back in 15 minutes. Why don't you guys try these? And then when I come back, you can ask me any questions. And then without, like, I think they perceive we're judging them. So if I remove my judgment from the room and just leave them to try, then they can put their hands on their dog, they can practice it. And then when I come back in the room, then they have actual questions for me. Like, hey, Sasha, when I do this massage, am I going from the top down or the bottom up? Right? Which is just a clarification question. It's retrograde massage or effleurage. It should always be distal to proximal, but there's so much information in their brain that stuff falls out. So giving them the space to practice in a non-judgmental way is great. And then I think the other piece is to stop talking as therapists for a minute. I think we want people to know what we know. We want people to know we have the best intentions for their dog. And in doing all of that, we create a lot of noise. So when we're doing discharges, and the whole rehab team does this now, is we'll say to the clients, has your dog had this injury before? I'm going to show you 3 things you can do for your dog at home. And these 3 things are very simple. And then I stop talking and I have their dog lay down, or if it's a post-op dog, lay down. And then I'll literally go, the number 1 thing you're going to do is put your dog's leg on a pillow. And then I put the dog's leg on a pillow and show them what that looks like, show them that it doesn't hurt. But I'm quiet when I do it. So I think it gives their brain a minute to absorb and rest and they're not having to constantly perceive words. And then I'll say, do you have any questions about the first thing? Usually, no, that's pretty easy. And then I'll say, okay, the number 2 thing is this massage, and then I'll do it. So I think all in all, it is keeping it simple, keeping it to 3 things. And then the other thing we've added is in the home exercise platform, we email the clients the home exercises before we go to the room to visit with them. So now we also can press the video button. So I will do the effleurage, for example, and then I'll press the video in their home exercise program and say, this is the video you have at home. So if there's too much information in your brain right now, like there would be too much information in my brain if I was in your shoes, you have the video at home to show you how to do it. So I think it's adding on tools, but keeping it simple.
Yeah, I think overwhelm is a big thing. We don't want to overwhelm them, and I think often we do. You know, as you're talking now, I'm thinking back to when I had my practice and my initial consult. And, you know, sometimes they'll come in there. So it depends if it's a post-operative case or maybe they've been referred by the vet. And a lot of the stuff that we're telling them, they've never heard before. And so now they're hearing about strengthening and range of motion and muscle mass measurements and underwater treadmill and all the things that we can do, and they're just sitting there. And then, you know, I generally never used to give any therapeutic exercises on the first consult, but I would in that time tell them all the other things, so the medication, all of that, and then we would progress to the, but often what would happen is then they'd come for their second appointment, and then I would check up to see have they done all the things that we first discussed, and maybe they hadn't, but then I would still give them those first set of exercises because that was my plan. That's how I did it. Yeah. And, you know, and I think back now, they were overwhelmed in the first one. They were still overwhelmed in the second one. And often in appointments, the exercises come right at the end. You know, so you treat the patient and you're like, okay, like let's just go over the exercises that you're currently doing. These are the ones that you're going to add in now. You can stop with that one. And it's right at the very end of the appointment. And it's generally when we're trying to get them out the door and the next client is waiting and it's rushed. So yeah, so I think that overwhelm is a really, really, really big thing. So I love the idea of just giving them 3 things. So whether it be exercises, whether it be food, whatever it is, just give them 3 things because that's actually all they can cope with. And if you have to do it over a few weeks. And I love the idea of, you know, being able to email it to them so that they can either just remind themselves, but often they need to get the family involved. Yeah. And then they are like, oh, trying to show the family like how to do it. And now they got a video so they can say, hey, everyone. And one of the things I used to do to try and get compliance is because often the same person would be bringing the dog or cat in. And I would say, now you need to get the family involved. So each person needs to have an exercise and they need to do that exercise every day, 3 times a day or twice a day, however many times. And that's their responsibility. So you need to show them this. And then they could split it up because then it's not just one person, because that's often the thing is that especially when you get into the stage where you're increasing your therapeutic exercises, they're starting to strengthen, they're starting to weight bear, you know, you start having more exercises, and when it's on one person's shoulders, it becomes a lot for them. You know, it's like, oh, that's half an hour of my day. But if you split it up and say, even like if you've got teenagers, you know, you can say children can do. I mean, some of the exercises are simple enough that they could oversee them. So yeah, let's chat a little bit about, you know, you were mentioning the reasons that they don't do the exercises. So overwhelm's one of them. So what I was thinking also is, you know, fear you mentioned too, but also the value. And I think that that's somewhere we can actually help, because I think that sometimes if we don't actually explain to them the value in actually doing the exercises, then they're going to be like, oh, I can just miss today, if they don't realize actually, and maybe that's our mistake. What do you think?
Yeah. So I'm going to pull up my little whiteboard that I use here. So I'm going to move the light a little bit. I think that our biggest issue when we're training clients how to do stuff at home is the ability to keep it simple. So if you can keep it simple in a way that is a little bit full of humor, a little bit self-deprecating, then I think the clients are more inclined to understand why. So this is the whiteboard that I use when I'm doing my home exercise planning for the first time with their client. And I'll just draw this little sketch and I'll say, this is your dog in Sasha style. Very, very basic kindergarten level sketch. And let's say this dog has hip dysplasia. I'll say normal dogs have 160 degrees of hip extension. Your dog right now only has 110 degrees. When he only has 110 degrees, he still moves through life because he's a dog. So now he's going to increase the motion through his back so that he can still do the things he wants to do as a dog. And then if he's overusing his back, the muscles that are attached to the front limb also attach to the back. So now the muscles in the back of his shoulders are getting tight. And then I'll just say, do you have any questions about that? And that's just keeping it simple, right? I'm not saying hip dysplasia. I'm not using the words luxation versus subluxation. I'm not saying iliopsoas or sartorius. I'm just keeping it sketch basic. And then I'll write down, these are the treatments that we did for your dog today. And just enumerate what the treatments are. Ask if they have any questions. And then I say, I'm going to send you home with 3 exercises today to start to work on this decreased hip extension. And then I think it really does help them to improve compliance because they're understanding why they're doing it. Oh, my dog only has 110 degrees of hip extension and he should have 160. So by putting his front paws up on this little balance disc, that's going to help strengthen his hips so that we can eventually get more range of motion back. And then each visit, we will remeasure for them and say, hey, now your dog today is 125. Look what you've done. And then we even have stickers. So we will print out range of motion measurements or weight loss measurements or whatever objective things. And we actually went and bought these fantastic stickers that say, wonderful, super, great job. And we give the clients stickers for their dogs that they can put on the refrigerator, share with their family, share with their kids. Hey, you guys, look, we made progress. And I think we forget that, like I know for myself, if I'm practicing a behavior change, like last year I started Pilates, and Pilates exercises are way harder than the other exercises I was doing. And so I need to recheck with my Pilates instructor so she can give me a good job or a not quite there. And I have to check in with her to keep me on the path too. So I think about that with my clients. What do I need to do for my clients to keep them checked into the path? And I think also not getting a sticker is very impactful, right? So if their dog didn't lose weight this week, they still get their weight chart, but there's no sticker on it. But we'll still say, they worked really hard in therapy today. They worked really, really hard in therapy today. But maybe let's concentrate a little bit more on the diet and make sure we get in those 2 extra home exercise plans so next week can be a sticker week. And it seems to work pretty good.
Yeah, I'm laughing because it sounds like, like my kids at school, when they get a sticker. But it's just that recognition for doing something, you know. So whether you're a child or an adult, we all like to do things right, and so and they're going to want to get a sticker. They're going to want to do right by Sasha and their dog, you know. They're going to be like, I want Sasha to give me that sticker. So I love that, rewarding them for it. And you know what I think about is, you know, we often have this mindset as us as the hero, you know. It's like, we got this dog to walk better, like, you know, we taught a paralyzed dog, now it can now walk. It's what we did, you know. And so we have to change our way of thinking, because they're actually part of the team, and if we want them to be compliant, we have to treat them like part of the team, and we have to make them the hero. So when they're the hero, like you say, when you give them that sticker, it's saying to them, like, well done, like, you did this. And that actually motivates them and then wants them to do more, because they actually feel a part of the team. So I love that idea. It's awesome.
And then they also share that in the lobby. And because, you know, your rehab clients come back repetitively, so they all know each other in the front lobby after a while. And they'll ask each other, hey, did your dog get her sticker this week? You know, or my dog didn't get her sticker this week. So then it becomes a community situation, right? And it's really interesting to watch the clients help each other. Oh, is there something I can do to help you help your dog this week? Because the client's husband had to go to the hospital. So we've had clients step up and say, oh, I'm so sorry. Why don't I come over and do your dog's exercises? Because I know you're going to be at hospital with your husband. So I think there's a large community component also. There's community for pet owners, and then there's community for your higher level performance dogs, because those guys usually have a really tight community also. So I think, yes, there is providing people with empowered tools so that they feel like they're part of the team. And then maybe also in some situations, setting up a little bit of competition is also good. So we have our integrative weight management program, affectionately called Flab to Fab. And these dogs go on strengthening plus diet programs, and we put their pictures on the rehab door so that you can see if they're trending or not trending. And when they graduate from the program, we have a parade about it. So they'll graduate, they have stickers, they have handouts, they get paraded through the lobby, everybody comes out and cheers, they've graduated from the program. And what happens then is that the clients are saying to the clients who are sitting there, new to rehab, they're saying, look at how rehab didn't just change my dog, but it changed my life. And I think if you can engage your clients on the, how's doing this going to improve your life, that increased the investment too. Because it's not just about, hey, I want my dog to be able to walk around the block. It's, hey, you know, we spend 30 minutes of family time together every evening, and the dog is an important part of that family time. So that really helps invest them at an emotional level if you can find out the why behind the rehab plan for the client.
I really love that board that you've got, because I love the visual aspect of it, because I think that certain people are more visual and certain people are auditory. So I'm a visual person. I mean, I can listen to stuff, but I don't remember stuff as much as I do when I see. So like in my mind now, I can picture that whole picture that you drew now there. I can see exactly everything. But if you had to tell me all of that, I probably wouldn't be able to remember it. And I think that it's great because it actually appeals to the different types of clients that we have. So if somebody is more visual, they can have a better understanding, and especially when it's quite difficult to explain to somebody something that they have no idea about. it's much easier to draw it.
Right.
So yeah, I really love that. And so for those of you that are just listening as a podcast, we will put that picture up on Facebook. So you'll be able to see that picture on Facebook. So maybe we can take a screenshot and we'll just add it onto the podcast. So just hop onto our Facebook page. We'll be able to show you. Sasha, let's chat a little bit about when things don't go so well. So like, let's say we're not getting a great outcome, and this might not be the client's fault. So maybe we've got a compliant client and we're just not getting the outcomes that we want. How do we stop them from getting despondent? Because, you know, week after week not getting a sticker, then they start to get a bit depressed and a bit like, well, I'm not trying anymore. Like, I'm over this.
Right. So I think we always have to remember that our rehab plan is as good as our diagnostics are. And often in rehab, we see dogs that come to us without full diagnostics. So we are doing the best job we can to build a treatment plan on a differentials list instead of true diagnostics. And when we have to build a treatment plan like that, I think it's really important to be real with the clients up front. As rehab therapists, we are way more optimistic often than specialty veterinarians who have to get very real, right? We're like, oh, we can probably improve your dog's function. This is what we do. But we do need to say, without a confirmed diagnosis, I need to build your dog's treatment plan based on the most complicated thing versus the simplest thing. So take a dog with a right pelvic limb lameness that maybe has upper motor neuron signs, and it's a chronic deteriorating thing. That could be anything from a disc to a tumor to a hip thing to a stifle thing, right? Our list of differentials is very, very long in that case. So what we'll say to the clients is, I am going to treat your dog as if it is a disc dog. For most disc dogs, I know that within 4 weeks, we should start to see some good improvement. If we get to the 4th week and we don't see improvement, we either need to change our treatment plan or you need to seriously consider getting diagnostics, because otherwise we're just spending your money while spinning our wheels. By setting it up like that, clients then have a very clear expectation and they're not disappointed if you get to week 4 because you've already had the conversation. So they're either expecting their dog will get better, no change, or if their dog gets worse, it gets a direct referral to get further diagnostics. So I think that's the best way if you don't have diagnostics. There are then those cases that just are going to deteriorate. For example, degenerative myelopathy, right? And I think success for those plans is helping the client understand the disease progression and including end-of-life decision-making in your rehab plan. So the client knows, oh, when my dog can't urinate or defecate anymore, that decreases our quality of life at home, and maybe that's the time to consider letting the dog go over the rainbow bridge. And geriatric dogs are very much like that too. So in my experience, I think that if we have diagnostics and if it's not a degenerative disease, you should be able to see improvement. If you don't, you probably have the wrong diagnosis. So, you know, and I work at a veterinary teaching hospital now in specialty practice, and even we sometimes have a hard time figuring out what the diagnosis is, right? So it's not like finding the diagnosis is always easy. We've got MRIs and CTs and contrast CTs, and we still can't figure it out sometimes. So yeah, does that help?
Yeah, I mean, we have that the same here in South Africa. You know, the client has a certain amount of money and they can't afford to have an op. So instead of getting the diagnostics and actually saying, let's just find out what this is, they know they're not going to operate anyway. So then
Yeah.
they just keep that money and spend it on rehab.
Mhm.
And then we're in that situation where we're like, what are we actually dealing with?
Right.
So I think a lot of the time, if you treat what you see, you generally are on the right mark, so you're just treating the symptoms that you're seeing, and you're, managing the case not according to diagnosis, according to what you're actually seeing in front of you. That's how I usually approach those cases.
Yeah.
I just say to myself, okay, well, I don't have a diagnosis, but let me just see what I see and just treat what I'm seeing right now and take it like that. But yeah, it is a tricky one. And I'm interested to hear that it's the same there, because in my mind, this was a South African problem. I remember working in the UK, and a lot of the dogs are on medical aid there. And, we very rarely didn't get a diagnosis, because the dog would come in, it would be on medical aid, and we could do all the diagnostics that we needed. Saying that, sometimes, things are complicated. So sometimes there's two things going on, and that's another thing. So sometimes you get a diagnosis and it's a cruciate, but there's actually some back issue or something else going on that wasn't diagnosed, and that you think, oh, maybe you can explain that symptom because maybe it's compensatory, or sometimes there are two things going on. But in the UK, we generally we were able to do all the diagnostics that we needed, whereas in South Africa here, there's a very small percentage of pets that are on medical aid. So what is it like there?
Well, it's similar to that. If you're in private practice, there are a lot of animals who don't get diagnostics. I'm at a specialty hospital, so people come for diagnostics. I think another thing, to the point of when we don't have diagnostics and we're building rehab plans, is to understand the biomechanics and the physiology of the tissue you're treating. So for example, if you think you have a type 2 disc or a chronic disc in a dog with back pain, you want to avoid extension activities, right? So if you accidentally decide that you're going to have the dog do core stabilization work and include crawling or bowing, these extension activities, those things could actually exacerbate the dog's underlying condition. Another one I commonly see is, there was a new study that came out last year or the year before, lovely study. They measured range of motion on post-op TPLO dogs in the underwater treadmill at different water heights and different treadmill speeds. And the bottom line story is dogs need about 140 degrees of hip extension in the underwater treadmill. So this hip dog that I talked about that only has 110 degrees, underwater treadmill is definitely indicated for that dog, but maybe not until we get a little bit more range of motion. Because if we exercise him in the water before he's got enough range of motion, we might just be exacerbating the underlying issue. So I think we're not quite there as a profession to be able to say, for this diagnosis, this is your exact set of precautions. So we have to very carefully think about what the precautions should be for the presumed diagnosis when we don't have one.
Yeah, lots to think about, Sasha.
I know.
We're dealing with so much. So let's chat about the other end of the extreme. So we have the overenthusiastic clients, and that would be me. That I'm that kind of person, like I'm the kind of person that, like I say now, I'm going to start exercising, and my husband gets so cross with me because I will then go and run like 10Ks like 3 days in a row and then injure myself because, and if I'm going to, I recently now thought like I'm going to go vegan. And, and so my husband was like, why don't you just cut out meat at the start? No, I'm going full out. I'm doing this whole thing, then that's what I do. I go full out, So we have those clients that, are over enthusiastic. So how do we deal with those ones?
We give them a lot of things that they can do that have nothing to do with the diagnosis. So the ones I most commonly see are very high-end performance dogs, agility dogs, and hunting dogs where I am. And these dogs will come in with, let's say, a tendon injury. And a tendon injury is a very precise rehab process. You cannot overstress that tendon or you can break it. So these dogs are in orthotics with long underwater treadmill plans and specific home exercise plans. So for those clients who want to do 110% for their dogs, and I have to protect the tendon, I might, for example, say, okay, here are your 3 tendon exercises. In the orthotic, front paws on the disc, back paws on the disc, and gentle range of motion of those digits out of the orthotic. That's all we're going to do for that digit. But then I give them 8 things for core, right? So I put the dog on a core stabilization program, but the dog's in the orthotic, so my tendon is protected. And then they feel like, oh yeah, they're still working out their dog, but the dog's tendon is still getting what it needs. So that's my favorite go-to for those clients. The other favorite go-to for the really type A clients is to get them involved at every step. So if I had a pet client, I would say, here's how you do range of motion of the digit, right? But for this client, I'll say, here's the origin of the muscle. Here's the insertion of the muscle. This is what it looks like when it's normally positioned. This is what your dog's looks like right now. And we do range of motion in this position because I want that tendon to get moved or have some excursion while it's in the device so we don't get adhesions, but we still need to protect it so you get where I'm going. I talk to them like a research scientist, and then their brains are engaged at a different level. So I think deeper client ed, more stuff outside the diagnosis, and then really importantly, I like to team them up with somebody else who has a dog with a similar diagnosis, because then they can talk to each other about it. I'm sure you have these clients who, like, his toe moved 3 degrees to the left when I did his exercises every 3rd repetition. That's okay. We don't mind. That's part of the process. So if you can get them a buddy,
Yeah.
those kinds of questions then will get off of your plate and they can talk about them themselves. And what it does is it builds camaraderie, because what they really want to know, these high-end working dog clients, what they really want to know is if their dog can get back to doing its events. And early in the process, you just don't know, right? This many of our dogs go back to very high-level winning agility events, but this number of our dogs do not. We don't know where your dog fits into that picture. Some clients grab onto the, oh, my dog's going to be on the podium. And some clients grab onto, oh, my dog will never do agility again. So if you can get them a buddy, then they can talk about those things with their buddy, and you can concentrate on the rehab.
Yeah, because that overenthusiastic client actually just wants results quickly. That's why they're so overenthusiastic. They want the answers, they want to know, and they think, like, the more I do, the quicker I'll get the answer. And they're uncomfortable in the position of not knowing. That it's maybe a type of personality. And I think that's why when you say, if you give them all these facts, you know, then they start to feel more comfortable because they're in the know. And yeah, so I think it's obviously a type of personality that you get when you have those type of people. I'm definitely like that.
If my rehab tech is like that too. Yeah.
I have to know everything. So I will read books and I must research and I must know everything. And I'm definitely one of those, you know, I can't wait until I want to know that it's all going to be fine now.
Yeah.
I think it's a control thing. I think, I like to be in control of everything, I'm very A-type personality. So maybe it's those type of people.
But there's also, I think, that learning component for some clients. And if a client really wants to know about it, send them to the right research paper, send them to the right textbooks, let them engage in the process, right? And that will help them better understand why you're making the decisions you're making.
Yeah. They just want more information.
Yeah.
Their brain needs more.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So the one thing I've been thinking about when we're chatting now is, the videos are great because people can see them, and they're able to copy them, like when they're at home now, when they're opening up their emails. And I mean, one of the problems that I used to have is that, I would say to the owner, they would come back and I'd say, how are you getting on with the exercises? And they would say they're really struggling. And then I'd say, okay, show me how you're doing them. And they would do them. And then they were doing them completely wrong. And then you'd be like, oh my gosh, like I did not do a good job in showing you, like, okay, no, that's not right. Like, let me show you again. And then it's a little bit of a worry. You think like, what did they do? That is like completely wrong. Yeah. And so the question I have is that, do you find that by giving them these videos, do you check them when they come back, and do you find that they're actually doing the exercises more and more correctly because they're actually able to visualize these videos at home and be able to look again and again and again and be able to see? Because it comes as second nature to us to do a weight shifting exercise or whatever it may be, because we do it all the time. But for them, if they can do it 10 times and then the 11th time they're still like, where do I put my hands?
Right. Yeah. So I think the videos help. Another thing that's very helpful in the videos is you can switch sides. So you can make a video a right-sided or left-sided. And in that way, clients actually do exactly what they're supposed to do at home. Additionally, inside the platform, if you have a specific way that you need something to be done, you can write in words how to modify the exercises on the fly. So for example, we have a dog in the Flab to Fab program right now. He has a mother, a father, and 6 children at home. 6, and the oldest one is 10. So as part of his discharge planning, we showed the children how to do his exercises. And as part of that, we needed to make modifications for the 6-year-old versus the 10-year-old about where to hold the cookies and how to hold the cookies. So we could write that in the exercise platform. So 10-year-old stands in front of the dog, 6-year-old sits on the floor in front of the dog. And that helps clients be more compliant. Additionally, if you have, say, performance dog level exercises that aren't yet in the platform, you can videotape them and upload them yourself. So if you're like, I do this exercise all the time, it's not in there yet, Sasha's not filming until May of 2020, just film it in your clinic, you upload it into your platform, add your instructions, and then you can use it repetitively. So there's lots of ways to use it in a nimble way in clinic to best meet the needs of your clients. So I think now it is kinesthetic learning, right, which is doing it with the client. It is written words, and then it's also visual with the videos and the pictures. So I think we're almost to the point where we have each learning style represented in home exercise planning, which we see fantastic compliance in our clinic, really high level compliance, even with clients who have their own physical disabilities. So we have human clients who are tetraplegic, we have human clients who have knee surgeries and shoulder surgeries, and these clients are still able to do their home exercises too.
I love that idea of being able to swap around, because we've all had the client that comes and shows you the weight shifting exercises where they shifted onto the wrong leg and they're very proud of themselves shifting onto the wrong side.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sasha, thank you so much. I think this has been such an interesting conversation. And for those listeners, I will put all the links to the Canine Exercise Program and to all Sasha's websites. So go and have a look. Sasha's got loads of books too. She's an author of like 12 books. So we'll put all the links into the notes. And thanks so much for joining me, Sasha. It's been great.
Thanks, Megan.
Vet Rehabbers, for more information on how to take your career to the next level, go to www.onlinepethealth.com. Please don't forget to subscribe to my podcast so you'll get notified. I'm here every single week talking to vet rehabbers from all over the world, learning, and I would love you to join me. Hope you have an awesome day further. Cheers for now.